morning, last count, Corla. This morning, Taoiseach, you've engaged in some political theatrics, some performative anger. You've spent more time lambasting Labour than you have setting out what you say government has achieved on housing. And yet you're accusing us in opposition of politicising housing. And that, for me, sums up the problem with your government, because housing is political. And in choosing to lift the eviction ban in 3 days' time, you have engaged in making a political choice, and it's the wrong political choice. It's a political choice that is disastrous, catastrophic for the thousands of families and renters now facing the cliff edge of eviction. It's a wrong choice which follows from a series of wrong choices that you and your government have made on housing. You've acknowledged that you should have done more, and you have not done so. And now we're seeing housing charities and local authorities warning that homeless services may collapse from Saturday. So your policy has failed. Your policy has failed, and that's why we in Labour have tabled a motion of no confidence. It's the responsible thing to do in opposition when we see the scale of the catastrophe facing us. It's the first we've tabled in many years, by the way, and it's also the fault of government. It's also the fault of government. If you lose the confidence of this House today, Taoiseach, it's the fault of government. That fault lies at your door. And we've given you an opportunity to right your wrong. We and other opposition parties have offered constructive proposals to continue the extension of the ban. For example, as we've proposed in draft legislation, to use an evidence basis rather than a time basis for extending the ban. You haven't even responded. You haven't taken up our proposal because you just don't have the answers. Your Conservative coalition is not working. It's all spin and no substance, and failing the people of Ireland. And in last night's motion, in the counter-motion put forward by government to another opposition constructive proposal, you put forward much spin and very little substance, because that motion from government was all framed in the future tense, what you will do to address the housing crisis, not what you have done, not referring to the measures you should have been taking while the eviction ban was in place over the last 5 months. This catastrophic failure in housing delivery lies at the fault of government, and it's a failure of ideology, not of the economy, because we are running a 5.3 billion budget surplus, 5.3 billion, highest in Europe. You've scoffed at Labour's ambition, the scale of our ambition, to deliver 1 million homes over 10 years. That includes 50,000 new builds a year. That's an achievable ambition. And it's the scale that we need. You've acknowledged yourself, Taoiseach, the immense shortfall in housing currently. In previous years, this country has delivered 60,000 new builds a year. It's perfectly achievable if the will is there. And Minister Donoghue rightly points us to the achievements of the state. The achievements of the state in addressing the COVID pandemic. It's that scale of ambition we need now on the housing catastrophe. 50,000 new builds, 50,000 refurbishments and retrofits a year. That's the scale of ambition we need. You may laugh, you may scoff, but it's based on your own figures. And yet now, Taoiseach, what we're seeing, your own housing agency, your own housing commission says that's required. And instead of that, what we have is no ambition and record homelessness figures. Over 11,700 people, including more than 3,400 children. Each one with an individual story of hardship. And each one of those people already in homelessness. And more now poised on this cliff edge, like the elderly man who contacted me, in despair. No prospect of security in his retirement, in his 80s, facing eviction. Taoiseach, it is unconscionable. We are the only opposition party ever to have served in government, and some of you have acknowledged that. We're not hurlers on the ditch in Labour, but we've put forward to you constructive proposals, as have other opposition parties, which you have not taken up. You have not even considered, you've castigated our proposals and not given any clear indication of what you yourselves have done or will do to address this housing catastrophe. You've acknowledged, Taoiseach, a home is a basic human right, but your government has failed to vindicate that right. You have presided over a chronic failure in housing policy, and it's for that reason that we have no confidence in your government, and we urge all colleagues in this House to support us in voting against the government today.
The Labour Party will not be patronised by Fine Gael. What I heard from the Taoiseach earlier was an arrogance born out of disrespect for the constitutional right of an opposition party to hold government to account. What I heard from you, Taoiseach, was the sound of entitlement. That's what it was. Noise from a party that's failing on housing, a party that's more interested in keeping the roof of government buildings over its head than providing roofs over the heads of children who are at risk of homelessness this very week. It's not the precarious housing situation that keeps you awake at night, Taoiseach, but the precarious Dáil arithmetic. The last week has been a week of shame, embarrassment and embarrassment for this House. Decent politics and good governance brought into disrepute. And the antics of this government, which are grubby little side deals with the cheap dates in the so-called independent ranks, will live, quite frankly, in infamy. Transparency has been absolutely sacrificed on the altar of those grubby little side hustles. And the sight of this government's first subs limbering up, hoping to catch the eye of the Taoiseach and Taoiseach, has been nothing short of pathetic. It's decision time now for those independents. This is a binary choice. It's not like last week's motion, which was amendable. It's a black and white choice. Yes or no? Are you with the people who elected you to work on behalf of the public good and the common interest, or are you fully paid up members of this Conservative coalition's second term? Now, if the road that the independents have been promised, or the community centre they've been promised in their village, is more important than the fate of children who may spend the school holidays looking aimlessly for new homes, then it really is time that those on the independent benches in this House took a damn good look at themselves and examined their own consciousness. Taoiseach, your Conservative coalition is now becoming a coalition of chaos, beholden to a ragtag bunch of independents for survival, and we have no confidence in you.